You spend your life working hard, building a home, saving for the future. And of course, you expect that one day, what you leave behind will go to your children. But what if it doesn't? What if, after you're gone, everything you thought was secure is diverted somewhere else entirely? It only takes one remarriage, a new will, or a shift in family circumstances for your children's inheritance to disappear. And when it happens, there's no way to undo it. This hidden risk is called Sideways Disinheritance, and it affects far more families than most people realise. Hi, I'm Jim from ELM Legal Services, and in today's video we're looking at the hidden risks blended families face when it comes to inheritance, and why a simple will often isn't enough to protect both your partner and your children. This is where trusts come in. The right trust can make sure your partner is secure for life, while also guaranteeing that your children still inherit what you intended. We'll break it down step by step so you can see exactly how trusts work and why they're often the best safeguard for families like yours. So let's get started. You and your partner each have children from previous relationships. Wanting to keep things straightforward, you do what many couples do. You write mirror wills. These say that everything will pass to each other first, and then once you have both passed away, it will go to the kids. Now, at first glance, this looks practical. The survivor is secure and the children are still provided for in the long run. The problem is that this arrangement leaves your children exposed to something called sideways disinheritance. Now, this happens when assets you intended for your kids are redirected elsewhere, often into another family line. So how does this happen in practice? Let's look at the main causes of sideways disinheritance. Remarriage. The most common way sideways disinheritance happens. It's when a surviving partner remarries. If you pass away first and your partner inherits everything, they may later meet someone new and remarry. And under the law in England and Wales, a new marriage automatically cancels any existing will, unless it was specifically written to cover that marriage. This means the will you made together is treated as if it never existed. Your partner is then left without a valid will, and if they pass away without writing a new one, the rules of intestacy will apply. Those rules place the new spouse first in line to inherit, and as a result, the family home and assets that you thought were secure for your children could pass entirely to this new husband or wife, leaving your kids with nothing. A new will after you're gone. Remarriage is not the only risk. Even if your partner does not marry again, they are free to change their will at any time after your passing. They may choose to favour a new partner, prioritise their own kids, or simply make different decisions about how they want their estate to be divided. Whatever the reason, your kids could be excluded. Family pressures and influence. Although not automatic in law, sideways disinheritance can also happen when the survivor is influenced by others. After you've passed, the surviving partner may be influenced by a new spouse, by stepkids, or even by wider family members. They may be persuaded, encouraged, or even pushed into changing their will. This pressure is not always deliberate or malicious, but it can still lead to your kids being cut out. Over time, the survivor's priorities may shift towards their new family, and the promises made in the original mirror wills can be forgotten. The result is the same. The inheritance you wanted for your kids may end up going elsewhere. Jointly owned property. Now, joint ownership of property can also create many problems. Many couples own their home as joint tenants, which means that when one partner dies, the property automatically passes to the survivor, regardless of what the will says. Once your partner owns the home outright, they have complete freedom to decide who inherits it. If they later change their will or remarry, your kids' share of the property is no longer protected. Not all threats to your kids' inheritance comes from sideways disinheritance. Sometimes the estate is simply reduced over time, leaving less for them to receive. Care fees. If the surviving partner needs long-term residential care, the assets they inherited from you will be included in the financial assessment. Now, with average costs of around £1,500 per week, even a considerable estate can be eroded quickly. What began as a secure family home and savings can shrink year after year after year after year until there is little or even nothing to pass on. Gifting or lifetime spending. There's also the risk of assets being used up during your partner's lifetime. They may choose to make gifts to others or simply spend the inheritance on day-to-day living and lifestyle choices. Once the money is gone, it's gone. Cannot be reclaimed for your kids. The key issue is that once one partner passes, control over the entire estate rests with the survivor. And without protective measures, there is no guarantee that your children will inherit as you intended. Sideways disinheritance combined with other risks like care costs and lifetime spending mean assets can easily be diverted, reduced or lost altogether. Take Ellie and James for example. They each had kids from previous marriages and made simple mirror wills. When James died, everything passed to Ellie, as planned. But a few years later, Ellie remarried, and under the law, her old will was automatically cancelled. When she passed away, her new husband inherited the estate, and James's kids received nothing. It's a story that plays out far more often than most people realise. That's why blended families in particular need to think very carefully about how they structure their wills to make sure both partners are protected in life and children are protected in the future. So, how do we solve this particular problem? This is where trusts come in. Now think of a trust like a safe with rules. Instead of handing your assets straight over to someone, you place them into the safe. Inside it might be your share of the family home, savings or investments. You choose trustees to act as the safe's key holders. They can't just open it whenever they want. They must follow the exact instructions you've written. Now, those rules decide who can benefit when and under what conditions. You also name the beneficiaries, the people the safe is ultimately for. For example, your partner might be allowed to use what's inside during their lifetime, like living in the family home or receiving income, but they never actually own the safe itself. When they pass away, the safe is opened and your children are guaranteed to receive the inheritance you've protected for them. For blended families, this makes all the difference. Without a trust, everything passes outright to the survivor, who is then free to change their will, remarry, or redirect assets elsewhere. With a trust, your instructions are locked in, your partner is secure, and your children's inheritance stays protected. It's about striking that right balance, security for your loved one today and certainty for your kids tomorrow. When it comes to blended families, the type of trust you use makes a big difference. A will trust, also called a testamentary trust, is written into your will and only comes into effect after you've passed away. This timing is very important because sideways disinheritance is a risk that actually only arises once the first partner passes and everything goes to the survivor. A will trust makes sure your share is protected, and it's at that exact point supporting your partner during their lifetime, while still safeguarding your children's inheritance for the future. By contrast, a lifetime trust becomes active while you're still alive, with assets managed straight away by trustees. Lifetime trusts have their uses in other areas of estate planning, but when the goal is protecting against sideways disinheritance, it's will trusts that provide the right solution. If you'd like to explore the difference in more depth, we've actually made a separate video on will trust and lifetime trust. The link is in the description below. So let's now look at specific types of will trusts that can be used to protect against sideways disinheritance. Number 1, property protection trust. Now, a property protection trust is a will trust that safeguards your share of the family home. You and your partner own the property as tenants in common, which means each of you has a distinct share in your will. Your share is placed into the trust instead of being left outright to your partner. Your partner is protected, they can continue living in the home for life, and if needed, they can even sell the property and move to another one. The trust simply transfers your share of value into the new property, keeping it safeguarded. When your partner eventually passes away, your share is passed directly to your kids, exactly as you intended, no matter where your partner has lived in the meantime. Number 2. Life interest trust. It's actually called an interest in possession trust. Now, a life interest trust is used when you want to provide your partner with ongoing financial support, while guaranteeing that the core value of your estate is ultimately preserved for your kids. Here's how it works. Instead of giving your partner the assets outright, the trust allows them to benefit from the income those assets produce. That could be rent from a property, interest from savings, or dividends from investments. They can use this income for their living expenses, but they don't control the capital itself. The capital is protected within your trust. So when your partner passes away, that capital, the property, savings, or investments, is passed directly to your children exactly as you set out. Number 3. Discretionary trusts. Unlike other types of trusts, a discretionary trust doesn't set strict rules about who gets what and when. Instead, it leaves those decisions to your trustees, who can use their judgment to decide how the assets are managed and distributed, always guided by your wishes. Now, this flexibility can be a powerful way to avoid sideways disinheritance. The assets never pass outright to the surviving partner, so they can't be redirected through remarriage, intestacy, or a new will. At the same time, trustees can still provide support to your partner during their lifetime and make sure your children benefit in the long run. You might choose this type of trust over a property protection trust or a life interest trust if your family circumstances are more complex. For example, if you have kids with very different needs, stepchildren you also want to support, or concerns about how future changes might affect your family, it gives trustees room to adapt while still keeping your estate safely reserved for your chosen beneficiaries. Each of these will trusts serves a different purpose. Which one is right for you depends on your assets, your family, and your priorities. But the principle is always the same, giving your partner security now, while making sure your children's inheritance is safeguarded for the future. Let's see how a trust works in practice. Meet Roger and Hayley. Both are in their second marriage. Roger has 2 sons from a previous marriage, and Hayley has a daughter. Together, they buy a family home. Roger's priority is clear. He wants Hayley to be secure if he passes first, but he also wants to make sure his sons eventually inherit his share of the house. To achieve this, Roger and Hayley change the way they own property from joint tenants to tenants in common. This means each of them has a distinct share of the home that can pass to their estate rather than automatically transferring to the survivor. Roger then includes a property protection trust in his will. His share of the home is placed into the trust when he passes. The trust gives Hayley the legal right to carry on living in the property for the rest of her life. She's secure, cannot be forced out, and still has a home, but she does not own Roger's half outright. That part is safeguarded within the trust. Now, when Hayley eventually passes away, Roger's share goes directly to his kids, exactly as he intended. At the same time, Hayley remains free to leave her own share to her daughter. The result is balance. The trust ensures Hayley is cared for during her lifetime while guaranteeing Roger's children are not cut out. Everyone is protected and Roger's wishes are carried out to the letter. Now, you might be thinking, this sounds brilliant. Why doesn't everyone do it? Well, the truth is, trusts are powerful tools, but they are also highly technical. They involve detailed tax rules, inheritance law, and significant responsibilities for trustees. If a trust isn't drafted or managed correctly, it may not achieve what you intended, and important protections for your family could be lost. That's why professional advice is so important. At ELM Legal Services, we take the time to understand your family's circumstances, priorities and concerns, and then we design wills and trusts to fit them. There's no one size fits all. Every plan is tailored to the people it's meant to protect. But don't take our word for it. Do your own research, read around the subject and speak with professionals until you actually find one you feel comfortable with. The important thing is that you have advice you can trust, so your wishes are carried out and your loved ones are properly safeguarded. If this video has been helpful, please like, subscribe and share it with anyone who could benefit, especially those in blended families. If you'd like personal advice, you can book a free, no obligation consultation with one of our professional estate planners by visiting our website, linked in the description below. Now remember, a little planning today can make a big difference tomorrow. So until the next time then, stay safe, stay informed and stay tuned.